Greensboro, North Carolina today. But before we do, don't forget to check out the latest podcast episode that we released with Christy Candle. I mean, we talked a lot about this is deep knowledge, like no fluff, talking about how do you get maximize the value in a development project. And if you want Christy's development course that she's giving away for free, it's $2,000, but she's giving away for free to our audience, to our community to help us out just by if you go on her channel, local real estate developer, just subscribe to her podcast, share with 3 friends. She's gonna give it to you for free. So I think that's a great deal. Right. $2,000 course. I mean, people go and get like a master's in real estate development course from big universities. They spend like 60, 70, probably 80 grand now, actually, for their graduate education. So don't sleep on it, right? It's a great deal. So today I got sent this deal, 511 Mystic View Drive, Unit G. Let's take a look at it. So this property, I mean, it looks like it's in decent shape. Like someone already renovated and did the work. So interestingly enough, the thing I don't like about it's one bath. It's only 700 square feet, so it's a little bit on the smaller side. So let's see how does the street look. I'm just looking to see if there are any signs of like boarded up homes. Don't love neighborhoods where you see that much stuff there. See, I don't love that type of neighborhood. I mean, it might just be like a random day where people have lots of stuff for trash day, but let's see if I see any like boarded up homes around here. And you never know, right? Sometimes you're just trying to do a quick gut check. Now, I think what I like about this property is that it's really close to grocery stores like Aldi. Now, what I like to do is I like to just look at some of the reviews and it's right neighborhood. Because if you look at sometimes like very sketchy neighborhoods, like a gas station, for example, you might type in a neighborhood. Yeah, bank, horrible service. That's not something that matters. But I'm just trying to look for like words about a neighborhood. Like if it's a really bad, sketchy neighborhood, sketch. Nah, nothing there. Okay. And this Audi is a 4.5. I mean, this looks pretty nice for the most part. Let me check this out. And it looks like a pretty normal plaza. Yeah. All right. Doesn't look that bad. So I kind of like it because it's very accessible. If you live here, you can just kind of just walk down. You can literally even like buy groceries you needed to. All right. Forget about it. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and analyze a few things. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the rent numbers for Greensboro. Now, typically what I would do is I will go look up the HUD FMR. I will look up the county, so small FMR, but I'm looking at Greensboro Housing Authority for quite a while now. And if you just look up Greensboro Housing Authority 2025 payment standards, it says right now there are 2 bedroom payment standard, which is my equivalent of rent ceiling. The rent ceiling is 1247. All right. This means that this is my rent ceiling, and this kind of corroborates what another one of my friends that's investing in Greensboro right now. He's getting about 1250 for his rent. So great. I would probably go for 1250. Otherwise, I would have went for a lower number. And here's what I mean. If I go to affordablehousing.com and I go to the owner section and I go to my market rent estimator, I plug in the address, I plug in bedroom count, and I can see that right here for 20 units within a 0.43 mile radius, the average rent is 1166. This tells me that this property will likely get 1166, but I like to say it's like on a nicer side, so I might get 1200. And again, the payment standard here is really my ceiling, but typically payment standards include utilities. So you don't include utilities, sometimes you have to back it out, right? There are obviously some housing authorities that make an exception. I think this is one of them. So I'm going to underwrite this property with 1247, but I'm also going to underwrite this property with 1166 so you can understand the difference in the numbers simply because of that. And the reason I want to do that is because of a test. It's called the rent reasonableness test. Now, what I have on the screen right here is the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook. This program guidebook is essentially Housing Choice Voucher is what was previously known as the Section 8 program. They rebranded it from Section 8 to Housing Choice Voucher because of all the negative connotations that were associated with Section 8. Hence why they did it. Okay. Now, if you go to Section 2.2, you're going to see the section called comparability. And it says right here that in conducting rent reasonableness, the PHA or the Public Housing Authority, they're the one that issues the vouchers, they must determine whether the rent to the owner is a reasonable rent in comparison to rent for other comparable unassisted units. So obviously the size unit type matters, right? If it's a two-bedroom condo, you're not comparing against a two-bedroom single family home. But you don't see that many two-bedroom single family homes. So that's why if you had to use worst case scenario, I would underwrite with 1166 as my bottom case scenario. And my better case scenario is 1250 because that's my rent ceiling. So let's go ahead and plug in some numbers here. All right. This property is listed for 102 500. Great. So let's plug in 102 500. Now the renovations, I will go to my rehab calculator spreadsheet right here. No patchwork. I don't think there's any outdoor stuff I need to renovate just because my HOA would cover that. I would probably just put in like $50 worth of painting, like $150 of touch up paint, just in case there's something that needs to get done. I will put in a. I hope there's no garbage disposal because I would definitely take that out. I would put in a high pressure flush toilet because I don't want to have any clogged toilet calls. If you ever get a clogged toilet call, it probably costs you $200 to get a plumber out there. If you have to replace the toilet, it'll probably cost you $200. So for me, I'd rather just put in these high pressure flush toilets. I've never gotten a clogged toilet call before, and I want to keep it that way because it's frankly not worth my stress. Okay. So now that I got these properties in here, it gives me total rehab of about, let's see, what else I'm saying? Yeah, I think everything else is good on this property. I don't need to do a little shower current, just like a small little minor thing. So let me just put in an extra $300 for it. Great. So for this property, I got 2.5% for closing costs, renovations. Great. Now, if I buy this property for 102 500 and I can rent it out for 1250, let's see what my taxes are. I'm gonna go to my payment calculator on Redfin. I'm just gonna scroll down right here. Obviously, you should double check with your county or assessor records. So this is $45 right here. Great. For $45 for my taxes, and I got 40 for insurance, so equals 40 times 1.2 because I'm adding a 20% premium because I'm assuming it's a more expensive policy if you are renting out your property versus living there as a primary residence. So I'm multiplied by 1.2 to give it a 20% premium. All right. I got 5% for my maintenance, and my HOA is 143 right here. I got 10% for my property management expenses. I got 5% for my vacancy. That gives me a 278 profit every single month. Now let's go ahead and plug in my interest rate here. So my down payment is 25%. I would be putting in B4, which is my asking price, times my 25% down payment. That's 25,625. If I if I buy this property, B4 minus that, so I would finance 76,875 at 7.5%. This property, if I rent it for 1250, would cash for 226 a month. And again, this is after all my expenses, right? And this is super important right here. Make sure you always put aside maintenance because guess what? Something's going to break in your home at some point, one way or the other. And if you're doing a long term buy and hold, then this has to be an area where you're considering. Okay. You have to put aside money because that money doesn't belong to you. And if you don't put aside money, you would be overestimating your profitability because you underestimate your expenses, right? You know that water heater, that AC is going to get replaced at some point, right? That roof is going to get covered by HOA. So it could be a little bit lower, but typically we put in 10%. But because it's a condo with a condo fee, I'm putting in 5%. Great. So I got 7.5% right here. Now, this property, If I buy for 102,500, I would get 9% return. That's a pretty good return. If I was trying to shoot for a 10% return, I just got to get it for about 100 grand. Great. So that would qualify for what would quote unquote be a deal. Okay. Now let me do one more thing. If I change the rent to 1166, right? So that's the more reasonable rent that we talked about. If I go to 1166 and let's say my minimum return is 10%, I would have to say, hey, I need to buy this property for 90. Let's call it 95 grand. No, you gotta get it back higher. 91. There you go. All right, that still rounds up. So you got to get it for 92 grand, assuming your rent dropped $100. Because now you can still cash for 214 a month, with $1,000 rehab, roughly speaking, with a 7.5% interest rate. Now I'll show you one more scenario. What if your interest rate is 6.5%? So watch very closely what's happening 10-year yield. So 102,500. Right now, if I rent out for 1166 and my interest rates drop to 6.5%, even though it's listed for 102,500, I might say, hey, if I can get this property for 98 grand, that's automatically a deal. 98 grand, even on the lowercase scenario, right? Even on the lowercase. So if you notice, just rounding it up here, if you notice the interest rates drop a full point, I would put an offer in on this deal for 98 grand. Now I'll show you one more thing. What if you also have a secondary loan on this property? Meaning, hey, this 24,500, you're gonna borrow this from somebody else at 10% interest rate, right? It's a private lender. Maybe let's call it, they give you 8%. They give it to you for 8%. Okay. This property, essentially, you got it for free, but you're still making $52 cash flow. And that's one way you can quote unquote buy properties with no money down. If this was $1,250 a rent, now all of a sudden you're making $100, you made $120 a month without any of your own money. Now, might that be a deal for some people? It might be, it might not be, but it's completely up to you. It's like, what is a deal to you? Just because it's a deal for me doesn't mean it's a deal for you. I mean, if I could say, hey, I can make $100 of cash flow per every single month, and there's prospects like maybe next year it's going to go up to 1,300. Like it's very hard to find cash flow right now. So next year it goes to the 1,300, right? Following year you go to 1,350. Year four, now you're at 1,400. So you might, and then in year four, get a 10% return on your money for a property that you didn't spend any money out of your own pocket to acquire. Right? These are the considerations that you have to consider. And I'm just sharing with you all the different scenarios on how you can plug in the details and figure out whether or not something is a deal. And that's what I'm doing here. Again, this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. Just simply showing you all what exactly is going on here so that you guys can figure out whether or not this is the right deal for you. All right. Hope you all have an amazing Tuesday. Hope you spend some quality time with your family and friends today because that's what life is all about. All right. Hope you all have great time. Thanks for tuning in live. Thanks for allowing me to explore creating content, not just on underwriting, just because I've done it so many times, but allowing me to share what I'm doing on creating content and sharing the same information that I'm learning every single day with you so that you can apply towards either your own podcast, your own mission, whatever niche you care about. Maybe it's co-living, maybe it's sober living, maybe it's senior living, and hoping that you can possibly become the expert in your area and be mentioned by ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever large language model by AI so that you can become the authority in your space. Because I think it's wide open right now. And that's why I'm working so hard on just expanding my skill set because you have to continue to evolve and grow. You can't ignore what's happening in the world right now. Everybody's asking ChatGPT instead of asking Google now. That's huge market share. And most importantly, it's an opportunity for you. And I hope you take advantage of this because I know you're listening to this podcast. You're listening because you want to make an impact with your time, your energy, your resources. I believe in you. All right. Have a good one, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow for 6:35.